All right. Welcome back to Hoffman Tactical. Today, we're going to be doing another live stream, and I have on a very special guest. First, I want to mention that some of you might have noticed that I am doing a new style of streams. I started off doing these streams doing CAD design, and I was doing, like with Chairman Juan, or we had some other guests on, more details on how I do CAD design. I still want to do some of those. However, right now I'm trying to branch into like other subject, which I've been very interested in and I think are very important for kind of the distributed defense community. And night vision is definitely one of those. So in today's stream, I'm going to be bringing on Vaughn with Vonscherf Arms. He's been doing a lot of 3D printed night vision, some digital night vision stuff, and just all around really cool guy, really cool stuff. So in today's stream, we're going to be talking about do-it-yourself night vision, 3D printing night vision, digital stuff, maybe heads-up display type stuff, all kinds of cool things. So let's jump into it, and I'm going to bring Vaughn onto the stream. How's it going?
Hey, how's up?
Awesome. I'm glad to have you on today, and this should be pretty interesting. So we'll jump right into it, and then we'll try to stop and go through comments a little bit. And for our viewers over on Odyssey, I will try to hop over there and talk to you guys as well. See what you guys have to say. I've got Odyssey up over here, and so why don't you tell us kind of the projects that you have worked on, you are working on now, and what the goals of those projects have been, just so I can have a basic overview.
So I kind of started the whole PVS 69 thing. It basically, like, I got started because I saw Coco's TikTok on the BP NVGs, and I was like, I'm buying a 3D printer. I'm doing it. So I bought a 3D printer, printed them, and I wasn't super satisfied with them because they were kind of like heavy in my opinion, and the resolution was bad. Granted, they're like $40 displays, but the resolution was pretty bad. And so I was like, I can do better than this. And I just over the past, I think it's like 2 years now, I've just been really trying to make it evolved from make a working at home night vision to making a competitive night vision housing that's competitive to industry night vision. And right now I'm working on the PVS 69 Alpha. That's on a 1.1 release right now, and the files for that are free. You can get them on my web store. Unfortunately, I'm restricted to US only, so basically you have to be from the US to download those files, but if you find them elsewhere, that's not on me. But the 1.1 files will have mono, a bino, and a battery pack. And the battery pack is just a quick and easy solution that I put together because people were hooking wild things up to them and basically ruining their build, which cost them a lot of money. So I've put together a simple battery pack solution so people stop doing that stuff. But so the mono, bino, and then currently in beta right now, we have the panos, which you can see in the background, I think. I don't know if people can see the background, but the panos, and that's the PNVG 69, and it's a folding pano system. Something that's kind of unique about the PVS 69s is they also take a digital tube. So basically the 69 Gen 3, which looked kind of like this is a really butchered up original prototype of it, but the 69 Gen 3 was strictly digital. Someone actually did make a modification to this design to take a tube with PVS 14 optics, which was kind of cool, but for what I released, it was strictly digital. And then I worked out this digital tube where basically you combine everything into the small, just MX10160 format, and then you can put that into a housing, making essentially any night vision housing cross-compatible to digital. But yeah.
Okay, cool. So to back up a little bit, when you got started, you started out doing digital night vision. And you were using quadcopter or airplane, or I guess FPV. You were using FPV cameras.
Right. Still am actually.
Low light digital cameras. And
right.
So that's how you got started. Then you transitioned into making housings for actual analog tubes as well, which obviously cost a lot more money. How does the digital night vision with kind of off the shelf FPV sensors, how well does that perform compared to analog night vision?
Well, there's a lot of like misconception here. I see a lot of people in like airsoft groups and stuff like that on Facebook claiming that and it's always like these like people from Asian countries like trying to sell FMA dummy housings that have been converted to digital stuff, and they're always like Gen 2 performance. You're not going to get Gen 2 performance out of digital. It's just not going to happen. Not even with like the Psionics. I don't know if the Opsin is really at Gen 2 yet, but the Psionics Aurora is definitely not. You're getting better than Gen 1. That is certain. I have a Gen 1 tube. I gave it the best chance it could possibly have, and I put it up against digital, and it just doesn't perform. I put a PVS 14 mil spec optic on it. The eyepiece couldn't be PVS 14 because it's got the sensor is twice the size as the display, so I'd have something bigger to actually make it 1-to-1. But yeah, it just in a pitch black environment with no IR, Gen 1 just doesn't even show an image. It's just black. But digital will show you something. And yeah, I'd say it's between Gen 1 and 2, but closer to the Gen 1 side.
So really requiring an infrared illuminator for a lot of stuff.
I mean,
but
yes and no.
But for that matter, even Gen 3 really needs an illuminator for a lot of environments. Night vision.
That's my argument to a lot of people when they're like, you need an IR illuminator. I'm like, well, I have Gen 3 tubes, and if I walk into a house that's pitch black, I still need an illuminator. Yeah. You know, I need something.
Yeah, and that's kind of I guess a misconception of night vision, because I have a PVS 14 with a Gen 3 tube in it, and if it's a dark night and I'm in the forest, without an illuminator, you can move around, but it's very difficult. I mean, you're getting very little information through that tube, so you got to move slowly, and you got to really kind of pick out what you're looking at in order to figure things out. With an illuminator, obviously, it's a lot easier, but night vision still needs light, and in a lot of environments, night vision struggles. So that's definitely true. A lot of cases, no matter what you've got, you need an illuminator. So I guess I'll ask, have you seen the X15? I believe I have it up over here. It's SPI infrared. Have you seen any of their stuff? They have a low light CMOS sensor.
Maybe I've seen a lot of like high performance digital stuff. I'm just going to Google that quick.
I'm going to do a screen share for the benefit of our viewers. Let me see if I can just go. Let's go here. I'm going to bring up a screen share. So I actually, they have it's a very large pixels on a CMOS sensor, and they're claiming full color, better than Gen 3 performance. They have a bunch of demonstration videos. And I actually called the guy who runs the place. This is like 3 or 4 years back. They wanted like $25,000 for just like the basic sensor and a basic housing, like not head mountable or anything, just like a basic system. So that was a little above my budget at the time. But I will now go present. Let's go share.
I've seen some like units that are like more tripod mounted, and they were crazy good. I can't remember what it was, but I saw one that was tripod mounted, and it was like full color night vision, like true colorful night vision. But something like that requires so much power that it's not practical.
Not good for head mountable stuff. But so right here, this is SPI infrared. They have a kind of not a very good website, but they sell thermal imagers, stuff like that. But they have they call it a low light CMOS sensor. And they have a demonstration. They have a demonstration video, which they demonstrate a bunch of different sensors, a bunch of different digital stuff. It's an interesting comparison.
I want to say this is the one that I'm talking about too.
Okay. This is it's the X27 they have, and
they show like a drone at some point in this video.
Yep, they do.
Yeah, I think that's it. Then.
That's probably it. This is the only one I've seen. I don't know if you had any additional information on it. It would be interesting to contact them again. Now that's been a few years, and see if they drop the price at all. But they make a lot of claims, which I haven't. They show testing out in a big field, but they don't show what I would consider like legit testing in like a more harsher environment. So I'm not sure about that, but it definitely looks like digital night vision is progressing quite steadily with sensitivity.
Yeah, it definitely is, and there is So these are just, this is a little tube thing I have made up. One of the tubes. These are such tiny sensors, like tiny, very
Yeah.
tiny sensor. Uh, it's like 1 by 2.8 or something like that. Like Psionics uses like a 1 inch sensor, and when you have that 1 inch sensor and bigger pixel size, or just I think they call it like binding the pixels together. Like even if you have the small pixels, you can bind them to make one pixel. That like drastically increases the capability of the sensor itself.
Well, have you ever done like sky imageries or long exposure image pictures at night with like just a normal DSLR or something?
Yeah.
If you do that, you open your shutter for like 30 seconds, you can get some incredible, way better than night vision. You can get full color, very bright images as long as you expose your sensor for long enough. So I looked into it a while back and kind of how the actual photo detectors on the sensor work and everything. And if you leave these, so basically this, as far as I understand it, a digital sensor, when it's taking an image, it's an analog process. It's basically the best way to think of it is it's accumulating photons in each sensor well. Is one way of putting it. So as the sensor is sitting there, it's accumulating photons, and then after you're done, whatever your frame rate is, after you close your shutter digitally or mechanically, you then read off the charge in each pixel, amplify it, and then convert it to a analog to digital converter, and then read it off. So
there's also a color filter layer in there too. So each channel can only collect that color.
Exactly. Yeah. So a few things that immediately pop out. It seems like going monochrome would be better.
Yep. Definitely.
Larger sensors would be better, and then longer shutter speed would be better. So how are you able to optimize those at all with just these off-the-shelf cameras?
Well, so one of the things we do is these are the sensors in here. We use RunCam Night Eagle, mostly the RunCam Night Eagle 3. It's the best performing one I've seen. There's also the Foxier Nightcat, but I've had a lot of those like just burn up on me. Like they just get whited out basically. The sensor, something goes wrong, it overheats and just whites out everything. So I've been sticking with the RunCams. The RunCam won't disclose to me what sensor they're using, but based off some of the specs that they've given, I know it's a Sony StarViz. They'll tell me that much, but they won't tell me what specific line it is. But I think it's like the IMX 290, and I forgot what the question was.
Sorry. Oh well, it's as far as optimizing the sensor.
So what we do to optimize it is basically adjust some of the settings, and the lowest we can set the shutter speed on here is 1-50, so 50 frames per second, whatever shutter speed, and that lets significantly more light than the 60 that it's preset to. So you have to convert it to it's super easy. You just have a little keypad and you just change the settings on the keypad, but you change it from NTSC video signal to PAL video signal, which lets it be a 1-50, and
it's probably 50 or 25 frames per second compared to 30 or 60.
Yeah. So it actually is locked at 50. It doesn't go lower than that.
I see. So, okay. So, and then also looking at the digital system, the way you're doing it right now is you have the fully integrated camera, which is a digital camera, which then processes the image from the processor, from the sensor, converts it to a analog video signal, which then runs to your display, converts it back to digital, and displays it on the display. So it seems like if you could, and obviously this is a significant project from an electronics point of view, something that, it's a big project. You have to work with a company on. But if you could integrate the sensor and a display into a single all digital unit where you could adjust all of your settings and it doesn't do the analog conversion and it's 100% digital, that seems like that would be a lot better if you did it that way. And I don't see why you couldn't do it with almost no latency, the same as the analog system, because the analog system is still digital on both ends. It has to actually convert it back to analog twice. So if you thought about doing a custom module with a sensor and a display properly integrated together, 100% digital.
Yeah, I've so like you said, it goes analog, digital, analog, and then into the display. It's definitely faster if you're gonna just convert it to digital and stay digital. But a lot of like this pre-built stuff that's off the shelf requires a lot of coding,
Mhm.
and I don't actually know how to code, and I don't want to like learn how to code, and then talk a bunch of other people through how to code something. So to keep it like really off the shelf, like plug and play, I really wanted to keep it with the analog because it's literally you just connect the video wires and you're good. Yes, if you're going for like absolute most performance possible, you'd want to do what you said, but it's probably super expensive
Yeah,
and
big
uh,
project.
yeah.
It's something you have to make as a commercial product, but it would be an interesting commercial product.
I tried to have RunCam ship cameras that have like the settings that myself and the rest of the like tactical development community have found to be the best settings. I tried to ask them if they would pre-ship the cameras with those settings. They said I'd have to order like 500 of them for them to modify the settings, and I'm like, I cannot do that.
Yeah.
But
So are they an all Chinese company,
probably
or do they have an American front end with Chinese manufacturing?
probably all Chinese.
Yeah.
I mostly get them from Amazon, just because if you burn something out, it's really easy to like Amazon return it, I guess.
Yeah. Cool. So that's kind of what you're doing right now with the digital side of things. And that was probably pretty confusing, but this is kind of my first time discussing this. So I'm kind of on the same page as the viewers here. If you guys weren't able to follow along, leave your any comments you have in the in the comment section in the chat, and we'll go through them a little bit later and try to answer them. So
If you
we have
see how it works, you have your
right
digital sample or digital sensor, and then a wiring harness, and then there's a boost converter right here to boost the voltage into 5 volts because the camera needs 5, and then connects to some contact points on the top. And I don't have the display board in here, but the display board goes in here, and then that just gets plugged in as well. And then it's all compressed into this one housing.
Nice, very compact. Let's see.
Actually, we have a really cool update to it too that I wanted to share tonight whenever. But
yeah, well, if we're still talking about that, I was going to move on to the analog housings, but let's jump in. If you have something else to say about the digital stuff, let's definitely jump into that while everyone is watching.
A huge problem that a lot of people are having with their digital tubes is like assembling them, because it's not the most straightforward. But I got these now, and I'll be publishing the files for these soon. I don't know if you can see these, but they're basically remember like that stream with Yukon? I was like flex PCB. Like I was in those comments just pushing flex PCBs. Basically, it's a new skill I learned, so I wanted to like practice it a bunch. And essentially, it is the contact for the board right here, your positive and minus, and then you can solder. They don't actually make the connectors we need to be soldered on here. So I had to like custom order them, and they made me order like 20,000. So that was the minimum I could order was 20,000 of each connector style. So I did that. They were super cheap though, so it's not a big deal. It's like 20 cents a piece. But you solder your connectors on, and it's literally makes it. Oh, you solder a boost converter on right here too.
So this looks like a ribbon cable that you're doing like surface mount components on.
It is. It's exactly what it is. They call it flex PCB. I call it a ribbon cable / PCB because it's ribbon cable connecting the camera and the display together, and then the boost, and then you got your contact points on the top.
Cool. That is,
That's just to make things way easier for myself because I'm tired of burning my fingers and everyone else.
Neat. Helps put everything together. Yeah, there was one comment here I wanted to address. It was John Doe. He says that wasn't exactly an accurate description of the analog to digital and digital to analog process. The digital, that's true. It was not. But the digital cams are doing a lot of time-consuming processing before displaying an image. So with most digital cameras, that is true, but there's no reason it has to be that way.
Right.
The current RunCam is a digital camera doing digital processing and then converting to analog. It could take that digital image and directly display on a display with practically no latency. a lot less latency than the analog system has. How it just isn't done in most cases because they don't, that low latency is not needed, and there's all the processing is a higher priority for whatever the particular application is. And I don't know exactly what application you're referring to here, but like digital go directly to it. The sensors are digital, so converting to analog will never speed it up. I guess I'll just put it that way. You're better off sticking all digital, but it would be a custom solution, and it would not be a remotely easy project because you're working with large scale integrated circuits and such. So I just think it would be interesting to have as an off the shelf item. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the digital stuff you've worked on and some of the different options available. Let's talk more about the analog side and the housings you've printed. So a tube, the actual night vision image intensifier, is just a vacuum tube actually that goes inside of the housing with has little lenses attached to it. So when you buy a night vision device, you're getting that little image intensifier tube right there with the housings and the lenses needed to support it. So since the tube is already the heart of the night vision, what are the advantages of printing the housing and sourcing lenses yourself rather than just buying a complete unit? Since the tube, you're still buying a factory tube. So what's the cost advantages there, and kind of what are the options? Because I know there are some.
Cost, there's not too much of a cost advantage there. I would say that I think you can get Chinese PVS-14 housings for like $200 for the housing, and that's like a monocular housing. And that's $200 for the housing, not including the lenses. People forget the lenses, and the lenses are also not cheap. They're actually pretty expensive if you want good lenses. I guess the real advantage of the printed housing is being able to print it. I guess I can't answer that. I don't know. You got me stumped.
Okay, so
it is a bit cheaper, right? So say you buy this. I think this tube is actually a decent one, but I have a tube I bought for $200, right? And super low budget, easy to get into. It's got a wild blem that crosses right across the screen, but I don't want to spend $200 on a housing for a $200 tube, and then also spend $500 for lenses for my $200 tube. The monocular that I'm putting together, I'm going to offer this as a full built, ready to go unit with lenses for I want to say I could do it for $300. So basically $300, you drop in a tube and you have your night vision device. You could do it at home for the reason I do it for that much is because it's MJF and assembled, but you could do it at home for probably around $20 if you were to print it and do it yourself.
That's pretty good. So if I guess an example I'll look at with tubes is what would be the cost of so if you take a PVS-14 Gen 3 white phosphor, nice image, a couple blems maybe, you're looking at like $4,000 to get an off-the-shelf PVS-14. How much of that is the tube, and how much of that is the housing and the lenses and stuff? Like, how much would that tube cost just to buy on the market?
Well, so the biggest thing to consider is an Elbit or L3. Elbit tubes are considerably cheaper than L3. I think you can go on Superior Tactical and you can order an Elbit tube for like $2,000 for a Gen 3 white phosphor XLSH tube. An L3 tube, you're looking at like $2,500 to $3,000 for the tube itself. And then the lenses, mil-spec lenses, you can get for, I think, like $250 for each side. So you're looking at $500 for the mil-spec lenses. When we're talking like American-made unit, it's probably American-made PVS-14 housing, which is, I think they run like $800, considerably more than the Chinese ones. But the tube is really where the money's at, and the lenses are also probably second in line.
Okay, yeah. So the Elbit, Elbit tubes are made in Europe. Is that not correct? Or they're overseas somewhere? And the Harris, the L3 Harris tubes. are made in the U.S. So is that why there's a main cost difference, or why are the Elbits significantly cheaper than the Harris tubes or the L3
I
tubes?
think it comes down to specs, really. I'm not a super big tube expert guy. I don't know if Elbit is Europe. I think that's Photonis. I think Elbit's America.
Yeah, I am thinking of Photonis. Yeah. Okay, so now no, the one spot I'm thinking that there is a cost saving is with these guys in the background. The well, I still have that up. Let me hide that, and I'll go. Let's see. There, these guys in the background here knew to get a quad. These PVS 69s
Yep.
to get these new is pretty expensive. So I would imagine that, and that seems to be expensive almost for an artificial reason. So I would think these would be significantly less than to buy one ready to go.
Well, they are expensive, not just because their L3 was for the longest time the only person who offered panos. It's also because like tier 1 special operations units were buying these, and it's illegal for government or for companies to charge the government more than they would charge the commercial market. So they have them on the commercial market for the same price that they want to sell them to the government for, which is how they can make uber fucking amounts of money selling these things to the government. And they're not really worried about the civilian sales, because they sell them to for every one they sell to a random person, they probably sell 100 to like tier 1.
Yeah. Now there are other companies making those now for like closer to 15,000 in that price range.
There's Lindu, which is a Chinese company, which basically they didn't actually copy the GPNVG. I learned this when I was doing a lot of study on the angle of the pods. Lindu has a wider angle than a GPNVG. So I think GPNVGs, you get 107 degrees. With the Lindu, like QTNVG, you get 113. And then there's also Nocturne Industries with their Chimera, which I'm not 100% sure where they are on the production of the Chimera yet. I heard a rumor that they don't even have a working model, but I don't know.
Okay, but right here, the cost of your do-it-yourself PVS 69 panos here is basically the tubes and the lenses, plus your printed parts. But the majority of your cost from your tubes and lenses, and that's going to run you like $12,000 for a whole unit, probably something in that range.
Depending on the specs of the lenses, yeah. But so I have a set right here, and just to like quickly break the price down, these are all Chinese optics. That's all I can afford, so that's all I use is Chinese optics. The eyepieces themselves, I get a special price on them because I've bought hundreds, and so the guy gives me a good deal. But you're looking at like, I think you can buy these actually in a set, $200 for the objective and the eyepiece. And what we do is we grind the eyepiece at a precise angle using a 3D printed jig to merge those two images, and then basically install it into the housing. And there's like a circuit board in here to make assembly a little bit easier, and that's kind of the gist of it. But yeah, it's pretty much mostly printed. I had a couple like prototypes. I have one right here, and this is less than a quarter roll of filament.
So very, very little.
Yeah.
So what is your performance on the the PVS 69 panos here versus a pair of panos from the factory? Like as far as the optics and the way the optics run your eye work, like is the image as smoothly blended together? Is the peripheral vision as good? Like how does it compare wearing one to the other, assuming that the tubes are comparable?
Well, I've never actually worn like L3 panos because, I'm not born into that kind of stuff, but I've had L3 panos like described to me, because you can't capture in an image.
Yeah.
You can't just take a picture and make it sense of what you're seeing. There's photoshopped images you'll see online where you actually see 3 circles, and I don't know what the overlap those circles are supposed to have, but for me, what I see is like circles that are just like kind of touching, but the line is kind of distinguishable, but barely. And I think that's just because I haven't used that optical epoxy to actually like merge the lenses together.
Okay, I see. So I can kind of picture what that's going to look like. You've got like 3 rings in front of your face.
Yeah,
They've got an image. And is that a significant improvement over just a single, dual tube or PVS 14? Like moving around and everything, is that I'd imagine that gives you quite an improvement in your
it's definitely cool.
awareness.
The way I can describe it is I actually did a test. This back wall, if I'm standing like basically right where the camera is, the back wall, I can see the entire back wall with panos, but I can only see the closet with binos.
Yeah, that's a pretty good improvement. I need to print some of these. So the panos seem to me like that. If you're going to pre-printing night vision, this is the night vision to be printing because it's a significant savings over factory.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely like if you're talking about like money's worth, like your value that you gain from printing, this is the most value gained from printing.
Very, very interesting. We do have an excellent comment here, which I will bring up just a little out of order. Hilltop Farm and Forge says, "Are you able to seal the lenses for a nitrogen purge?" So yeah, so that's an excellent question right there.
Right now, no. So like right now, this is the eyepiece. Sorry, the mirror stuff. This is the eyepiece kind of assembly, and when we grind them, this will take me like 3 seconds. I'm gonna pull a lens out to show you. But when we grind them, we actually expose the cavity between the lenses. But I also don't think these lenses come purged from the factory because I messaged the guy and I was like, hey, do you nitrogen purge these lenses? And he said, yes, we use an ultrasonic cleaner. So I don't think they actually nitrogen purge them. But so basically when we grind them, we grind the glass, but there's actually an area under the glass which gets exposed. So I'm sure that is not sealed.
So
but the plan,
bring up that module one more time. Let me just make you big. Right there. Okay. So we'll continue in a second what you were saying, but first, this little module right here, what exactly is this we're looking at right here? These two components. These look like assemblies almost.
These are the lens cells from a PVS 14 lens. So when you buy a PVS 14 lens, I got one over here somewhere. It comes with this kind of shroud part on it, and then you just twist the knob and thread it out. And then this is typically what threads onto your night vision housing. I don't have one on hand right now that'll thread onto that. But then this piece is your lens cell. So this has like a complex of lenses in it. Somewhere around 5 lenses are inside here, and they just do lens optical magic. Anybody who's like doesn't know about lenses and tries to look into lenses is probably going to like explode their brain. So I leave that part to the lens man because he knows what he's doing. But
you continue.
Yeah. So basically, where are we at? Nitrogen purge.
Yeah, and when you're grinding them and issues with opening them up.
So I found an issue last night that I did not anticipate. Actually, so when you grind this, there's a metal ring that goes around the full circumference, and that presses everything together. When you grind it, it's more of a C shape now, and it's exposed right here. I actually clipped this one with pliers because when you fully grind it to where it needs to be, there's still that metal ring there, so you got to clip it to get that merged image across that gap. But I dropped this last night, and it just this fucking shot out everywhere. So I was like, damn. And I didn't anticipate that being a problem, but it kind of is. So you might want to like, if you're going to do it, you got to like maybe epoxy on the threads or something to keep this press ring in place. I would have thought that it would come like that, but I guess not.
Okay. So you're getting, so this is what I wasn't sure about. So we're kind of having to kind of go along, make it up as I go along. The lenses you're using, you're not taking individual lenses and then stacking them up inside the housing. You're getting a lens module that has them already stacked at the appropriate distances in there. Is that like an off-the-shelf type item that your lens guy makes, or did you have him make that specific item?
This is already an item that the lens guy made and sold. I don't remember what the company is. It's something on Alibaba. They're Chinese-made lenses. He's gotten better over the last probably 6 months. The lens quality is actually improved. Where I have mil-spec lenses somewhere, and I've compared them. And this is an early one of his lenses, and then this is like the latest model, which is the outside is actually like cut different, but the lens stack, it's probably not going to be distinguishable on camera. But there used to be like an orange color hue to the older version, and the newer one doesn't have that. And I was testing it last night because the Chinese guy tried to explain to me that the new lens, further away from your eyes, it still makes a distinguishable image. So what do they call that? Eye relief. The eye relief is better on the newer lens and a lot closer to mil-spec eye relief.
Okay, so this kind of helps understand why the lenses cost what they do, because it's not just one lens, it's a stack of lenses in order to get the appropriate image projected into your eye from the sensor. So it's a stack of different lenses built up into a single housing that he's giving you as a module. What is the potential of assembling that yourself? Like if you got just the lenses and then printed a housing for it, maybe on a resin printer or something?
Well, working on that actually. That kind of leads into the thing that I'm working on, where the inside geometry of this is basically just made to accept this piece sliding in, right? Just like that, and it just kind of slides in and fits in place. I'm working with the lens guy. I basically sent him this kind of CAD file, and he's going to modify it to accept the lenses. And he sent me something back. I haven't had a chance to open it yet, but I think he sent me back the working model. And I also tried to make a working model. Didn't turn out so well. He gave me the measurements to space the lenses and stuff like that. It's under NDA though, so I can't actually disclose those, or else I definitely would. And I don't know, maybe they'll get leaked one day. Who knows? Someone will hack my computer. But yeah, so basically it is definitely possible to install the lenses yourself. When the one exploded last night, I tried to restack everything, but I couldn't get it in the precision that they do it. It worked, but it wasn't right. There's no other way to explain it other than it kind of worked, but it kind of didn't.
So the lens alignment is critical and can be challenging to get proper in the lens stack. Okay, so now I understand how the lenses are working a little bit better, and I imagine that the objective lens up front is a similar thing, a similar lens, integrated lens stack.
Yep, it's just a series of different lenses, not just a single one. But Dr. Bone is a username for a guy in my Discord server. I think his real name is Ben. I'm not going to say his last name, but Ben took an FMA GPNVG housing, and he printed the pods on a resin printer. And he was able to, I think he used, I don't remember the math, but I think he used like 2 50 millimeter focal length just lenses, right? And when you put those lenses, I don't remember the formula, but there's a formula where if you take 2 lenses that are the same and you put them at a specific distance, you'll get half the focal length. So he did that to get an approximate 25 millimeter focal length, which is close to the 26 millimeter that PVS 14 optic is. And so he was able to get decently working lenses, but the problem is you get all that barrel warp around the edges. So you really get a good image when it's up close, but it has very poor eye relief to them.
And that kind of leads nicely into the next question I have, which I think you just kind of answered, which is using off-the-shelf lenses to recreate a similar to a PVS 14 type eyepiece. And that's basically what he was working on. Yeah,
basically. I'm sure if he really wanted to get more complex with it, he could. I don't remember if he ordered the lenses from Edmunds, but Edmunds Optics has an entire library of these lenses. And I recently learned that Fusion 360 is able to I don't know if you call it ray trace, but you go into the render mode and you can have it render what that image would look like if you use those lenses in that stack.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
I did not know that.
yeah, it's actually a really cool feature that I just found out about. It takes like 10 minutes but to render it, but it does it. And I think Blender does it a lot better, but I don't know Blender. Ben knows Blender real good though.
I did not know either of those. I haven't really considered optics that much before, but I can definitely understand where optics are important here. So leading back to the original question about nitrogen purging, which I thought was a good point here. So right now, you're not nitrogen purged. So have you had issues with fogging? Like what kind of waterproofness or issues with water getting on the inside and then evaporating and fogging up your lenses? Has that been a big problem?
The panels are so new that I have not had any issues with it. Because I haven't really gotten to use them more than like running around my backyard or like, you know, playing freaking Navy SEAL and clearing my house, you know. So I haven't really like had time to actually operationally test the panos. The alphas though, I've taken the alphas on multiple hunting trips and I've used them extensively. I probably have close to like 200 hours under the PVS 69 alphas, which is actually I only recently got another night vision housing that wasn't designed by me. So the only thing I've ever used is the stuff that I've made. But anyways, back to the alphas. On the hunting trips, I was in Minnesota. It was fucking like 30 below. And the only time I ever really had fogging was coming inside. And at that point, you don't have to worry about internal lens fogging because you're fogging on the outside. So it's the internal fogging was not a big deal.
Interesting.
The problem where it might fog is maybe if you're going into a really hot area from a room temperature area, you might get some internal fogging.
So that's definitely something which would be nice to work out, you know, having everything properly sealed.
So that brings me back to the design that's going to be in here. So basically, when we have the assembly piece, I'm just showing this as an example, but when we have the one that accepts each individual lens into this piece itself, there's going to be like a groove in here which connects this eyepiece to the rest of the housing. So when you do your nitrogen purge on the actual housing, it simultaneously purges the lens system.
Okay, so you're working on that. There's plans for that.
Right. Yeah, that's something that I considered, and I'm just trying to get the. That's going to be an easy like draw a square and extrude it in kind of thing. So I'm trying to get the rest of it worked out before that.
Cool. Okay. Cool. So this kind of, so we've covered, to do a little summary here, we've kind of covered what you're doing with digital night vision. We've kind of covered what you're doing with tubes here and specifically the panos, which are pretty cool. I feel like that almost should be like your main focus, but I think it kind of has been more recently, but you've definitely been working that more because I want a pair.
Yeah.
But moving on a little bit to kind of future possible development, let's talk a little bit about night vision in general and the issues that it has. So I know for me, a few of the biggest issues I've had with using night vision is one of the biggest ones is just the bulk and weight and size of the system. Having to wear a bump helmet with something heavy hanging off your face, having to wear lead weights in the back or a battery to balance it out, and it sticks out of your head a good distance while you're wearing it, and it's pretty clumsy. And I don't like bump helmets. I don't like helmets at all. So unless you need one, but in most situations,
special mount for your hat that you wear.
Yeah, exactly. So making night vision lighter and smaller, almost it's like, to me, like an optimal solution would be just goggles that have a heads up display on them, which is actually a whole nother thing, and they're pretty complicated. But just goggles, the heads up display, and then some tiny digital sensor that just relays the image and then properly matches it up so it matches what you're looking at, which is also really complicated. That would be like optimal. So what have you seen or thought about as far as making night vision more compact or a little bit more user friendly as far as lower weight or something along those lines?
I saw somebody recently just posted in the Discord, actually, basically this size. He had the run cam with the stock lens on the run cam is like a 4mm. So you get this crazy 100-degree fisheye view, but he did a run cam and a display. and he like mounted it on a pair of safety glasses. So it was just like this mounted on his face. And that's basically his display system was you can get these really cheap ones that are 0.23 inch and they have a weird lens. I have no experience with them at all, but they don't have a circular lens. They have this square kind of like, I don't know, it's a square with like this, but it's supposed to work. And he did that, and that's like the smallest digital thing I've seen. A lot of people question my decision to make it into the tube format because there's a lot of wasted space in here. And you could really condense all this into like a very small, more flat.
I tend to agree with them. That's why I brought it up, because I think it would be cool to pursue the digital stuff and make it like a little more optimized, just to kind of let people know what's possible.
Yeah. The real reason I wanted to pursue the 10160 format is because there's more than just FPV camera sensors that we're trying to work in here. Like, I'm trying to work in, somebody actually did it and they did it before me. So I'm mad about that, but I'm not mad because it's still really cool. Somebody in the Discord took a infrared thermal core. So you get these thermal cores that have lenses built onto them. You can get them on like FPV sites, but they have a crazy markup for these like FPV thermals. But you can also get them for, they're $1,000 a camera, and it's just a small thermal camera. But you can put that on the tube, or there was more than just the thermal. But there's different like camera options essentially for this size format. So like I have an IMX 385 sensor that I haven't put on here, but someone else was able to modify these to put the IMX 385. And the 385 is just a much bigger sensor compared to the 1x2.8. But the real goal was for this format was I wanted to get a 1-inch sensor and a 1-inch screen and be able to, at some point, release a 1-inch by 1-inch tube system.
Okay, so you're wanting to do that for modularity, so you can expand later into something better. Yeah, that is interesting. So another thing with night vision is the way all the objects are laid out. The intention is when you're looking through the into the night vision, into the tube, the image you're seeing matches the image your eye naturally sees.
Right.
If that makes sense.
That's the intent.
Yeah, and that's not that easy to do. But that's what night vision does. So a big issue I see with any alternate system is getting that same one-to-one appearance is difficult.
Right.
So have you seen anything to try to like, I mean, obviously the panos make your field of view wider while still achieving that by adding multiple viewing ports. But is there any other methods of using alternative systems to maintain that one-to-one perspective, but increase your field of view?
Yes. There's a lot of like math involved when you're talking about taking your image, using the proper focal length lens. So basically, this is where you would start. You'd start with your objective lens and the focal length you want there. We settled on 8mm because basically 8mm was the best pair to the PVS-14 eyepieces to get that 1-to-1 with the 0.5-inch sensor and the 0.28 or 0.5-inch display and the 0.28, the 2.8 sensor. But it really comes down to like, it depends, I guess, because you can step it to a 6mm, and that's I'm sure you know, smaller focal length, bigger field of view.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to step your zoom up essentially on the eyepiece itself to get that field of view closer to you, to make it feel closer, because that's basically what we were running into with the stock Night Eagle lens. There's a 4mm lens, and that was in this like 69 Gen 3 platform. When you put that on, everything got 50 feet further away from you just instantly. And
you're looking at like a fisheye lens, basically.
Right, and it's not that bad when it's on both eyes. It's manageable. You kind of basically you look at your feet, but you also see like your buddy's feet too.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I mean, it wasn't too bad, but you obviously want things to be to feel closer to you or feel normal to you. So step into that 6mm, or we stepped to 6mm at first, and then they discontinued the lens, And I really liked that one because it gave you that wide field of view, but everything wasn't so far away. It was still further optically than it is to your naked eye, but it was nicer. And then the 8mm is really where we settled because that gave the closest 1-to-1. But we still want to get a stronger for the digital specifically. I'm working this out with the lens guy too, is to get a stronger magnification eyepiece for the digital, and potentially, and well, the reason he says we can't go higher than an 18x, 18 times zoom eyepiece. I don't know. Their numbers don't make too much sense. PVS 14 he says is 10 times zoom, and then the 18x zoom would he says is better. I don't know. He does the math on it, but he said we can't go higher than an 18x, or else we'll get too much of that like barrel aberration and chromatic
spherical
aberration.
distortion, everything.
Right. Not just spherical, but the colors too. Like the angle you look at it, the color will change.
Okay. So I can see it as a bit of a trade-off with your objective lens. Going wider angle, you lose that natural 1-to-1 projection, which has got to feel strange. But you are gaining more information. You actually have a wider field of view. So what's the potential of putting a wider field of view objective lens on an analog tube? So basically replacing that mil-spec design forward lens pack with something that gives you a wider collection of light to give you more of a fisheye view.
There are options for that currently. I think there's a couple of U.S. options, and Alexi, which is a Chinese lens company, and our lens guy says he works for Alexi. I don't know if he actually does. They might just lie to get the clout, but apparently Alexi has like a 53-degree field of view. Standard PVS 14 is 40-degree. Alexi claims to have the 53-degree field of view, but when you do that, you also change your objective and your eyepiece, because those have to be in correlation to each other to reach the same 1-to-1 field of view. And I want to say they step it to like a 20mm or 23mm versus 26.
So, Bob, so what I'm thinking is losing that 1-to-1 field of view, maintaining the same eyepiece lens, and simply accepting that fisheye appearance and not being able to see as far, but having more awareness up close. So I just haven't seen anyone do that. And I think it would be interesting. It would feel weird. You definitely, I would think, want a tube on each eye, but basically just increasing the field of view of your objective lens without touching your eyepiece lens at all.
That's something that we could potentially look into. I know I showed you beforehand the 8mm PVS 14 thread lenses we have.
Mm-hmm.
You can put that in front of an analog tube. You're going to get a huge fisheye, but what happens is the format of those. Let me just grab one real quick.
This lens stuff, guys, gets complicated. Who knew I needed to look into lens mathematics? And I'm going to go to the comments here, and that's what we'll do next. We'll go through the comments after we address a couple more things.
So this one right here is the PVS 14, and this one is the I think this is actually a 12mm. We're experimenting with a 12mm for that IMX 385. But you see this I think they call this the format of the lens. This is much bigger, and it fits the sensor area of the tube. Whereas if you put this up to the tube and it gets close, they almost touch.
It projects an image that's way too small onto the tube.
Right. You're cropping so much information out that the image you see on the tube is much smaller.
Yeah, that's not good. But I would think you could get around that with a larger optic assembly
with a purpose-built like assembly. Yeah, you could.
That would be interesting. It would. I would think with training and practice, you'd be able to get used to that, and it would let you have better situational awareness up close. And while it might not be good for looking at objects far away, because you're going to lose information because everything's going to get smaller, for inside of buildings or up close or in the woods, I think that would be quite beneficial, having that wide angle, even though it seems like it would be very non-intuitive, at least at first, but you can get used to anything if you do it long enough. So with that kind of discussion out of the way, what about the mounts? So I know that there's pretty much only like one mount company making night vision mounts, and I can see you've got the adapters to use to be compatible with those mounts on your panels back here. What have you done to experiment with possibly other options for mounts?
So there's a 3D printed mount that you can do called the Warthog. I'm gonna grab that real quick.
Okay.
So mine is not completely finished, but this is the Warthog mount, and it basically, I don't know. Do you not want me to say the company name?
Oh, you could go ahead.
Okay, so Wilcox is like the main night vision mount company. They've been doing the night vision mounts for the military.
I couldn't think of their name. I just thought of it before you mentioned that. I was like, yeah, that's the only reason I didn't say their names. No, you can say Wilcox. That's fine.
But the Wilcox Dovetail has pretty much become the industry standard for night vision mounts. So this mount is a printed mount. I don't remember the guy's name. It's on Thingiverse, but it's called the Warthog, and it's got some issues, but it's a working mount. And this is like one option you can do, and it basically has the same functions as a Wilcox. So this is a Wilcox right here, not a clone. It's a real one. But Tim, you dropped out.
Yeah, there we are. It's just the camera does that.
Yeah. So this is a real Wilcox. It has the same functionalities as a real one, where it has this slide back and forth. It has a like vertical adjustment here. I have mine tightened down so it doesn't adjust, but it's got that vertical adjustment. And he basically took a Wilcox and made it 3D printable because this is just too small to do structurally on a 3D printer.
So my complaint with is I actually do not like the Wilcox mounts. They sell them for a ridiculous amount of money, and I have one of the, I think it's the G24. It's their breakaway mount. I have not been particularly impressed with the build, either the design and the quality. It's been the biggest issue with it is it's somewhat loose.
Right.
It's not. But when you stack up all the joints, the helmet mount, I have a Team Wendy helmet with a, that's all relatively good quality equipment. But when I stack up the helmet mount, the Wilcox mount, and then the dovetail onto the night vision, it gets all of those joints stacked up on each other get pretty sloppy after a while, and you get quite a bit of movement. So if you're running or jumping around, your night vision is not super solid. So that's a big problem I have with even with the most expensive military mounts available. So I'd like to see a more solid option for that. Also, it's not forced. Right here. Yeah.
This is a new mount that was just released by Argus. And I actually saw Wilcox just released one of these too. And Wilcox apparently says that they did it first, but I've seen them for Argus before I saw them from Wilcox. But this is the Argus lightweight night vision mount. This front part, the sled, is actually some kind of polymer plastic, and it's got a lot of like indents in it to make it significantly lighter than the Wilcox. But I put this on my OpsCore. I have a OpsCore bump helmet and an OpsCore SF Maritime ballistic helmet. But the amount of wobble on these is so much less than the Wilcoxes. It's insane.
That's interesting. Because the Wilcox, I'm not at all impressed with Wilcox. I'm like,
yeah, they could do better for sure.
Yeah, I'm like, I suppose what they charge, for that kind of money, for just a mount like that. I understand it's custom machine and low quantities and all that, but I expect them to have exceptional quality and absolutely all the kinks worked out. And it just isn't. It's kind of not super impressive.
I can feel the wobble in the sled of the Wilcox just like that.
Yep.
With this Argus, there is nothing. And a guy I know, his name's Chris. He owns Nocturnal Tendencies, which is like a PVS. He deals in like PVS 14s and other night vision. He put me onto these. He sold me one, and basically, apparently, he dissected one. He was part of the when Argus was first making them. They sent a few testers out to different people, and he dissected it. And there's all these nylon tipped adjustment screws. He dissected a Wilcox and he dissected an Argus mount, and the nylon tipped screws there's a lot bigger portion of nylon on here. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that'll basically let you crank it down further without getting that marring into the material. Like if you use a clone Wilcox, right? They get wobbly, but there's these nylon tip screws in here. They're nylon tipped here, but they're not on the clones you get on Amazon. And those will just basically scratch the finish when you articulate them out.
And you can't tighten it up. You'll just cut into the metal and it'll get rough and won't run properly.
but with these, you can tighten them up and they won't scratch it.
So I see there's the one kind of PVS 14, not PVS 14, the Wilcox G24 clone 3D printed mount there. Is there any other 3D printed mount option? Because I can kind of visualize sort of how I would do it. And you'd want to deviate pretty far from the Wilcox design, trying to make it much more rigid and compromise some adjustability. Because for me, setting it once and then locking everything in would be pretty reasonable. Having all the adjustability is nice for some situations, but I don't think it's absolutely critical. It's something that I would rather have better tightness, less wobble, and compromise that for adjustability. So I think a 3D printed mount would be interesting. And along the lines of the 3D printed mount, I think that dovetail probably needs to change, because that's been one of my concerns. And that's kind of my next question is, have you had any failures with that, with the 3D printed dovetail on your, on any of your equipment?
Yes and no. The reason I have not had as many failures as some people have had with like the BP NVGs and other like 3D printed night vision, and even like commercial night vision. Let me see if I can capture this. Instead of just one bolt holding the night vision mount down, or I think like the industry standard now is a 3-bolt system where it bolts the Wilcox to the bridge. There's actually a dovetail in here. It might be hard to view on there, but it's a reverse dovetail joint that grabs the dovetail so it slides into that slot.
Yep,
and is actually supported by the plastic itself instead of that just singular bolt. Where I have had them fail, I print them in this orientation. This one was very badly warped.
But I can see where they could split at the layers there.
Right. I haven't had them fail. I've really tried to optimize this as much as I could to increase that surface area on these layers to get as much layer adhesion as I could. I have had them fail in this point, but that's why I made it detachable, so you can pop one out and pop another one in. And that's pretty much the only failure I've had, is it does split right here if you get whacked really hard in the head or something like that. But this is such a simple, easy print, and it's such a simple thing to swap in and out that
you want to make sure your night vision is properly mounted with a tie down to your helmet, so it doesn't fall on the ground.
Not just bungees either, because then you just get smacked in the face.
Yeah. So that's something I think would be worth, if you're going to use printed mounts, which I think is worth doing. I just think that compatibility is going to have to change. That's been one of my biggest concerns with printing them. It would be cool to have something where the night vision is actually not semi-permanently attached to the mount. So it's all one piece and it's actually bolted together, or even print in place. And that way it's a much more solid system, all as with basically just one joint, so you can get it out of the way. I think that would be pretty cool. And you have the adjustability you need to get it in position on your eye, and then you can lock it all down. And it's a compromise, but it would allow an all 3D printed system to be a lot more solid.
Yeah. Are we still talking about dovetails or just the mount in general?
Both. We're talking about the dovetails and the mount. That's just kind of,
the original Gen 3 that I designed, the bridge is printed straight up like this. And then, a lot of support material went in under here, but the dovetail was actually printed directly onto the bridge. But I had them break, and then I was just getting really annoyed with it because I was really new to 3D printing, and I was having trouble getting like this surface to slide in and lock nicely. And I ended up switching to the modular dovetail, and I thought it would be a better thing in the long run. But the original PVS 69 Gen 3 used a built-in dovetail, and I think even on the I might have it in here. My drawers are all gunked up as shit. Unlike the original PVS 69 was also called like the VP NVG. It was just basically my spin-off of the VB or the BP NVGs. So I kind of did like a spin-off of it, redesigned it, posted it up on Thingiverse and cults and stuff like that. And then I started getting into like my own more purpose-built housings, and those had the dovetail basically built into the bridge system as well. And then when I moved into Gen 3, that's when I made the switch to a detachable dovetail.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how the original system could be stronger if it was printed in that orientation. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think at this point I'm going to jump into the comments and see what questions we have. I feel like we haven't. This subject is something I haven't put enough thought into. And was that the original right there?
This is the original VP NVGs. They're not put together anymore. I sacrificed them for parts, but
yeah,
essentially folding panos, right? And the dovetail is made into this bridge, and the wires actually ran externally on this. So I had like XT30 connectors that were pinched in place in these gaps right here. They got pinched in place when you put the front end on, and you just plugged them in with this special 4XT30 wiring harness.
Yep. Neat. Okay, so kind of moving on. I think I will scan through the comments here. I'm going to scan through Odyssey. I'll let you just kind of scan through what you see on YouTube. On StreamYard, you should be able to hop over to the comments. There's a button over there all the way on the top right-hand corner. You should be able to read the comments there. If you see one, point it out to me. And this always takes a few minutes, which is a little bit of inefficiency. I need to work out my streams. As far as the content we've covered already, we have been jumping around a little bit. I do apologize for that, but that's because I'm quite new to this subject myself, and I'm just trying to kind of get a grasp of what's going on here. So like we need almost a follow-up stream to dive into a particular subject. But I think for our viewers, this is kind of an overview of the different options with night vision. I'm going to jump into the last subject we'll have is kind of how to get started. But we're going to, I'll hop over to Odyssey.
That we did not cover today, and I would really like to cover some of that later on because there's some huge advantages to digital that weren't even clear to me until recently when people brought them up to me, and I was like, wow, I didn't even think about that. Like, that's crazy. But yeah, so there's definitely more to be talked about here than what we covered.
Definitely. Okay, so on the stream should be available afterwards on Odyssey. For those who are wondering, it'll be available on Odyssey and YouTube afterwards. Let's see. Holo or Hollow Cough says, I know how to code what you need. He's over on Odyssey. There's actually quite a few projects which we need more advanced programming and software development for. So if you're interested in helping, kind of start one of those projects, just let us know. And that would be cool. We need defense turrets, better security systems, better night vision. There's lots of stuff to work on that involves more advanced software stuff. Okay, so hopping over to YouTube, I am not seeing a lot, but let me scan through here. Let me know if you see a comment that jumps out at you. Let's see. Minikill says night vision amplifies light. You can't amplify what isn't present. That's very, very, very true. Though in many cases when night vision has a very poor image, there's still enough light to, technically speaking, create a better image. It's just the night vision is incapable of doing so. So,
right. Because a lot of people think of the light spectrum as only what we can see too. And some people know about the infrared light spectrum, but there's also the UV light spectrum.
I was going to bring that up.
That's not. There's spectral sensitivity charts you can see for different sensors, and
okay.
There's the UV spectrum is unexplored territory.
We have to make a little aside here, okay? Because this is something I was thinking about like last year, and I never pursued it all, but you brought it up here, and I totally didn't think about it all in the stream as a question. I don't know why, but I should have. So a big issue I have with people's philosophy around night vision is that they assume that their opponents are not going to have night vision, and that's completely false. Your opponents are going to have better night vision than you do. That's just the way it is. So this is not 2010 like overseas like fighting sheep herders. That's not the situation.
GPNVGs now, so
yeah, that's not the situation that they're. Well, I'm not talking to you directly. I'm talking to the audience. The way you have to be thinking about it is your opponent has night vision as well. So if any infrared illuminators you're running, any lasers, they're gonna be able to see those. So you have to think of it in that perspective. That's just the situation that we're now in. Now that's where the other end of the spectrum, the ultraviolet spectrum, is so interesting. So if you were running ultraviolet sensitive sensors with ultraviolet illuminators, you would be able to see, and conventional image intensifiers would not, because conventional image intensifiers have very poor sensitivity towards the higher frequency end of the spectrum. So you just brought up ultraviolet light with digital sensors. So how practical is that using ultraviolet light with ultraviolet illuminators? Or you were going somewhere.
ultraviolet is going to bring an entire new change to the game. I don't think there's anything ultraviolet yet. But so basically you have your light spectrum. Your visible light spectrum is a very narrow part in the middle. And then on one side you have infrared, the other side you have the ultraviolet. A huge advantage to ultraviolet is not just being invisible to the infrared spectrum. It's ultraviolet is able to, this is when you get into like hyperspectral, if you've ever heard that term. Hyperspectral, you can collect the entire, or not the entire, but a huge portion of the spectrum. So you're able to see like trace chemicals, you're able to see water vapor and stuff like that, which maybe isn't always important. You don't always want to see the fog in the air. That could hinder the hyperspectral system.
Yep.
But what it could see is toxic gas. It could see nerve agents. It can see potentially explosive residue and things like that. That's where the hyperspectral really starts to shine in the UV spectrum.
That is interesting. Because there really isn't anything in that category.
Right.
On a military side of things.
Like, they're boxes that are like this big, and they're not meant to be carried, or not meant to be head mounted.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think that's an interesting side of things. So scanning through here, let's see what other comments. If you see a good one, let me know. We get stuff on digital. It's time for quad thermals. This brings up another interesting question, which reminds me of is thermal imaging systems. The biggest problem I have with most thermal imagers is that they have a horribly tight field of view, and that's because they want to be able to reach out to a distance to identify stuff. And do you hear an echo?
I heard crazy for a second, but you're good now.
Okay, that was weird. I have reverb on my end. So this was at the beginning, but let me know in the chat, guys, if we're having a really weird echo sound. If not, we could just move forward.
It did like a glitch for a sec, and then it cleared back up. That's what I heard.
Okay, well, no, it says we have an echo. That's unfortunate. We had it earlier, and I'm not sure what the cause is. Yep, we have an echo.
Damn.
It's a weird problem we've had. It's on StreamYard's end. It's not a hardware problem. So thermals. I'll let you talk while I try to troubleshoot on my end. So thermals, field of view, and integrating thermals with more conventional night vision.
So a thermal is nothing more than basically, like, obviously on a very small scale, when you get to the sensor, it's different than a camera, but the optics and things are not different than cameras. So to change the field of view, you change your lens and you change the focal length of the lens. There's plenty of resources to get different focal length lenses for different thermal sensors. So you consider your sensor size, and then you consider the focal length of the lens to basically get the best image pair that you want. So basically, I was looking into using the Infrared Micro 3S thermal cores with a like 6.9 millimeter lens, and they give you an option. There's a whole range of different lenses, and it tells you the different focal length from each lens that they have to pick from. And that's the thing that I wanted to do is 6.9 or 6.1 millimeter lens in there, and that was going to give you the 30 to 40 degree focal. It was like 30 horizontal, 30 vertical, 40 horizontal degree field of view. And I talk so fast I lose what I'm talking about, but that was basically going to be the field of view spectrum there. But you can also get smaller focal length, which widens things out.
Wider field of view.
Yeah, and it'll widen things out for you.
Because a thermal, a PDS-14 with just a thermal inside would be pretty cool. For just as a complete replacement for night vision. Not always, but in some situations. The problem is current available small thermals that you can hold on your eye are much narrower field of view because they're made to look further, and that makes them less practical for head mounting. So it would be really cool to have a wider field of view on a thermal.
So this right here is a thermal This comes out of a firefighter tick. I'm not sure what tick means, but it's like a thermal thing they wear or use to basically spot fires. But the reason I got this is because the core was super cheap and it came working. It's a big thing with thermal is like cost versus resolution. That's where thermal shines. You want resolution and you want frame rate. So with thermal, you can find a thermal sensor for $60, but it'll be like 9 frames per second and it'll be like 20p. You know what I mean? Like it's just very terrible resolution and very slow frame rate. So you really want something more like the FLIR or infrared sensors to do that. But yeah, they're not small. This is a heavy unit, and it's in this like weird printed housing that this guy shared with me on Facebook. And these are kind of a one-off thing, so it's not something that everybody can do because you have to find one of these on eBay out of a broken tick to be able to put it together. They're not really commercially available. Optics Planet is selling them for like $1,000 or something like that, and they're definitely not worth $1,000. So don't do that. But yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to try something real quick. Let's see. What was I going to do? I'm going to take my volume all the way down. Now, is there still an echo here? Do you detect an echo? Just let me know in the comments. Put A's in the comments if there is still an echo, and put B's if we're good. But this is a problem on StreamYard's end. We had it earlier. It's not with my equipment over here. It's yeah. They're saying yes, still having an echo. There's the only thing I can do about it is just restart StreamYard. I'm afraid that we might end the stream. So at this point, it might be better just to end the stream. I don't know. I can't hear my own echo, so it sounds better. But I know it sounds bad. That's an unfortunate issue with StreamYard having right now. Let's see what other things we have to go over. There was comments. Let's see. Did that fix the problem? Does it still echo now? Let me know. Yes or no? A or B. Is it echoing? Or is it not echoing? Let me know again.
Some people are saying it might be from me. I don't think it is, but I can like.
I just muted Von's mic. Let's see. Does that yeah? Let's see. That actually seemed to fix it. Oh, I see. Yes. So it's reverbing on your end. Okay. So when I mute your mic, it fixes it. Excellent suggestion from the comment section, guys. We went through. Okay. For some reason, I was thinking it was on my end. Do you have speakers running on your end?
I just unplugged my mic, so it should just be running off my laptop, which shouldn't like pull sound from itself.
Let's see. How's that sound? Nope, it's still reverbing. Just a second. We have a technical glitch, ladies and gentlemen. Go into your settings at the bottom of the screen. There is an option for under you'll see go down a 3 and it has an auto echo cancellation. If you select that, it might help with the situation.
Selected.
Okay. No,
what if I just lean really far back? How's that sound?
Wait, so you have the camera speaker. That's what it is. Wow, if you have headphones, that will fix the problem.
No headphones.
Well, I don't know why it wasn't doing it earlier though. It was perfectly fine and it started again. Well, I'll just mute you when I talk and then unmute you when we're done. That'll fix it.
All right.
Okay, now you're muted. So let's quickly that fixes it. All right, excellent troubleshooting, guys. For some reason, I was not thinking about it being on his end because it was working, then it wasn't working. Okay, so we have one more good question here, which was from Cypher. Have you ever thought about manufacturing your own Gen 3 tubes? I could think of some issues with that, but I want to let Vaughn talk about just some details on analog tubes and kind of how they work and how they're made.
So I have not personally tried to or thought of manufacturing the tubes because it's really complex in here. But I've known some people who were going to attempt it where I don't know the full scienciness of how it works, but basically there's like a microchannel plate which converts photons to electrons, and those get multiplied across a voltage circuit before they hit like basically a detector plane, and that detector plane changes them back into like electrons or something, and then they hit the phosphor screen and they light up the phosphor screen to create your image. And the problem is like all this is done in a sealed vacuum tube inside of this. So basically this outer part is a plastic shell, and then there's like a layer of epoxy in there, and then there's your vacuum tube like system in there. And I think this guy's explaining it in the comments. He probably explains it better than I can. I don't know the full scienciness of it, but yeah, basically it's just so complex that it's not really possible to do at home. But then on top of being extremely difficult, you need to keep the optical axis of all these parts exactly center, or it's going to be all wonky. And even tubes you buy, the optical axis is not perfect. And these are made in like $1 million factories. And so it's just not at all a doable at home thing.
Yeah. So along the same lines, I guess I'll just kind of follow up on that. I agree. It's like building integrated circuits, but more difficult in a way because it's not. It's because of the geometry. And another thing I'll throw in there that they have is that the image the image has to be inverted. So inside the tube, your image is actually upside down from your objective lens, if I understand it right. So inside the tube, you actually have to have a fiber optic bundle that is twisted to flip your image 180 degrees right side up again. So that's just another thing in there. So they're very precise, complex vacuum tube electro-optical device. So they're pretty complicated to make. So it's not the kind of thing that you can make at home without some pretty significant equipment. Like just if you look into how the micro channel plate is made, it's a pretty primitive and very expensive process. So I don't think it's be practical. I think digital night vision is going to be more practical using off-the-shelf components moving forward. Let's see. Oh, we have K9 Defense Technologies. We have Yukon here in the chat. He says, "Hey, Vaughn, sorry, missed most of the stream, but definitely going to be rushed later. Great to see you on stream sharing your awesome work." Yeah, absolutely. Glad to have you in here. Yukon, it's been an interesting stream, even though we have had audio issues. And I don't know if we had any other questions in here. I mean, we did. I'm missing a lot. I need to work out a better way of handling questions from the comment section. And let's see. View price. All right, so I think we've covered most stuff. Let's see. Rampart Fire County Department says that he has a question, so just let us know what it is, and I'll do my best to answer it. So I think I want to kind of edge out here. I think we've lost quite a few of our viewers down here due to us the stream getting a little bit less organized here towards the end, but that's okay. For everybody who's still watching, I wanted to go over. I wanted to ask you kind of analog versus digital, like a kind of a quick summary of the pros and cons, and then I want to ask you kind of how people can get started. Either analog or digital, making their own night vision equipment, and tips for cost savings and all of that. So analog versus digital is the first question I'll ask.
Okay, so basically to get started, right, it's just printing the files, and I don't have any really good instructions that are like instructional videos of this is exactly step by step how to do it. Mostly because my computer editing skills for editing video are super lacking, and it's something I've been working on and I'm trying to get better at. But I have like a written guide of this part goes here, this part goes here. But I'm also really active in the Discord server, and so you basically just create a thread and say, I'm trying to build this. Here's what I have. Here's what I know so far. Help me do the rest. And like myself or any of the couple thousand members in there will walk you through how to do it. But essentially you print it, you run your wires, you solder on your contacts, and if you're doing analog, it's as simple as building the housing, dropping your tube in, and putting your lenses on. If you're doing digital, you have to install that digital tube, which was a really big pain up until now. I just got these in the mail. They're like basically a circuit board that lets you plug and play all the components, and this basically makes the digital tube thousands of times easier to assemble. So those are going to be going out with all like the the MX69 parts kits that I sell, so everybody can get these and assemble their units much simpler. But that's pretty much how to get started. Is step one is you go to my web store, you download the file pack that's free. Unfortunately, it's locked to US only. That's just due to some agreements I made with my work. And so it's locked to US only. And then, yeah, you can start assembling it from there. It's not exactly a cheap project, right? So it isn't like you're going to spend $30 and have a night vision system. You're looking at least $600 for digital to do it yourself. For analog, you're looking at probably 2,000 plus, and that's with like some whack tubes that you can get off of eBay that have crazy blends in them.
Okay, so it's still a pretty pricey game. And as far as analog versus digital, what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, price is a big difference. Analog is going to give you better performance. Is there any advantage? I mean, is there any advantage to using digital equipment, at least in its current state of operation? Is there any advantage that it has? Any perks that that would maybe lean you towards trying it out, or at least experiment with something using digital equipment?
So there's a few major advantages over digital that analog doesn't have. And do you mind bringing like Flarble's comment up on the screen where he's talking about the used tubes and digital latency and stuff like that? Because I can address all this too.
That one. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This one. So yeah. Just a second. Yeah, this is it here. Yeah, it's the latency, lag, frame rates. That's only an issue with certain systems.
Right. And so there's a huge misconception that digital night vision is garbage because the one-to-one is off. It's super latent and it's just not usable, which is, if you're going to buy the $200 Amazon digital night vision and expect to get anywhere near Gen 1 performance, it's just not going to happen. They don't have a good one-to-one ratio. They're always really zoomed in, and the latency is crazy because of basically the technology used in them. And they're just not optimized, and that's just the problem with those. But the advantages that digital would have over analog is there's basically no way to damage them. Once it's in, like if you just want to practice running your tubes and maybe you're not like proficient enough to go do some night games for airsoft or whatever you're going to do training, and you just want to get practice, with the night vision on, maybe get your neck used to it, because you got to get your neck used to it. But if you just want to get practice, you can take them out in the day and you don't have to worry about damaging them. Laser blems, I don't think you're really going to blem your thing if you laser it, but if you got a laser directly in it, it's probably going to destroy the sensor, but it's a $70 plug and play swap out for a new sensor. And that's what a huge advantage of it is. It's really way more sturdy.
So a good option for like training, getting used to night vision before you invest a lot of money in actually buying night vision.
Right. I've had a few companies reach out to me who own like night vision training ranges and do training, and they want to buy these tubes specifically for training because it's a lot more cost effective for them as a business to use a $300, because the tubes themselves cost about $300 to make, the digital tube, with like a $40 objective lens. So it's way more cost effective than the analog system. And you get most of the qualities that analog has. You get a higher spectral sensitivity in some tubes, like the higher end L3 tubes, the unfilmed stuff will have similar sensitivity as the digital, but like a photonist tube doesn't have near the spectral sensitivity. So you can operate in that 1200 nanometer range or NM range and basically be invisible to analog.
Interesting. We have some more comments from Flarbles here. Let me bring one up, and I have to talk about it real quick. It's referring. Let me find it. It's the earlier one. Just a second. Let me find your comment if I can answer. It's basically reference to frame rate. This is, you have full access to your reflexes with analog tubes, even the highest performance option. That's the digital night vision made by the one company now. Compares in comparison to a just a low quality 2+ tube, 30 frames per second, a grainy digital image compared to a usable image with analog. So frame rate and latency are two very different things. Frame rate is something which is diminishing returns. Once you get up to 60 frames per second or so, it might as well be an analog device. As far as your perception, your eye sees, 60 frames per second is super fluid. The problem is latency, and latency is something that will be fixed with time. There's processing being done, and it just has to be fast enough to eliminate that latency, and then you'll be as good as an analog tube. Because once you get your latency small enough, it doesn't matter anymore. So frames per second versus latency is a different thing. The frames per second with digital night vision is not a big deal. Really, once you get over 30 frames per second, you are pretty solid. And once you get at 60, there's no reason to go higher. 60 frames per second is plenty for most situations. The issue is latency. Digital night vision has a huge latency issue, but it is being, it's going to, I'm confident it's going to get better. So right now, the latency issue with digital isn't really an issue, though, with like the system you're using with Von, with the analog cameras from FPV. Your latency is also extremely low.
Yeah, so we've actually done some like scientific-ish testing, and it wasn't done by me. It was done by a third person who designed it, or he didn't design his own system. He designed his own testing mechanism to test PVS 69, Psionics Aurora, and a Gen 2 tube he had. And basically, he posted all these results. His YouTube channel is like Tula or Tulio, something like that. But basically, when this guy's talking about 30 frames per second, he doesn't actually know what he's saying, because the Psionics isn't 30 frames per second. It's a 30 shutter rate, which is different than frames per second because you can do it differently, I guess. But so 30 shutters per second is different. And basically that, you know what it is.
Well,
but,
yeah, that's your shutter speed is how long you're exposing the audio. That's how long you're exposing the sensor per frame. And obviously you get motion blur issues if that gets too large compared to your frame rate.
Right. So you can have a fast frame rate with a low shutter speed if you do, I forget the term, but it's, I can't remember the term, but there's basically a way to like increase the frame rate more than the shutter speed by twice as much. But I don't remember what the term was for it. But anyways, what I was getting at is he's done these tests of the PVS 69 versus the Gen 2 versus the Psionics. And I don't know what the latency number on the Opsin itself would be, but the Aurora latency number was somewhere around 300 milliseconds, which is super high.
Yeah.
And the with the test rig he put up, his Gen 2 tube tested around 6 milliseconds latency, which theoretically it should be 0, but it was at 6 for whatever reason. And the PVS 69 actually came in at around 20. So the latency is so low that it's not actually noticeable. You can't notice it unless you're driving or like really sprinting. And unless you're Usain Bolt, you're not going to be, seeing that latency.
Yeah, exactly. It's the latency is really an issue with the Synox equipment right now, but it's already gotten a lot better, and I think it's going to be getting. I think it's going to be improving even more. And at some point here, digital is going to replace analog tubes. I'm confident of that. It's just a matter of time. But for now, analog definitely has the edge on digital as far as overall function. But that's going to be changing.
Yeah, I think digital is definitely going to be the future. And I've actually, I don't know how much I really want to say to this, but I was talking with some people that I work with, and the one guy was really impressed with the PNVGs I put together. And he linked me up with some of the people from Galvion, and they want to basically get me involved in a project they're doing, which the guy described it to me. It's similar to the IVOS system, but totally different. He says, he's like, it's similar, but it's completely different. So That's something that would be really cool to, if they actually like bring me on even as like a consultant or something, that would be really cool to help out with that. But they're pursuing digital for that system as well, but they're not pursuing the psionics digital sensors like IVOS did.
That is interesting.
That is interesting.
Let me fix my audio. And then, of course, the other big thing with digital is fusion integration between a thermal and a digital image intensifier, or high sensitivity sensor, becomes a lot easier than trying to integrate an analog tube with a digital thermal cell. So that's another really interesting aspect of it. And then we have one more comment I wanted to mention from Canaan Rocket Technology before we sign off here, because I have gone overtime like 35 minutes, but I'm just trying to kind of catch up on all these different little aspects. Was augmented reality. Let me find your comment, Yukon. Let's see. Here it is. Yukon says, I'm inclined to believe augmented reality optics may be the best way forward for digital since the video output is rectangular. I'm curious everyone's opinion on that. Yeah, so I want to bring this up because we touched on that a little bit earlier in the stream, just briefly. And this is kind of a heads-up display sort of device. I think that there are... I think it has a lot of potential, and that just because making a much more streamlined, lightweight system that doesn't have this big, heavy optical device hanging out in front of your face would be a big improvement. But there's a lot of problems to solve there. And as far as I think there was some mention you mentioned light bleeding and the reflective signature that the tube form factor solves. So and this was mentioned earlier a bit. An issue with most like heads-up display type devices, if you look at how they work, they're actually pretty complicated optical systems, but you'll get light bleed coming off the front side of the device, which will give you away to other people with night vision. But there are some systems, and I don't know what the exact name is I'm trying to think of, but that basically project an image directly into your eye using a laser. Now that sounds scary, like bad for your eye, but it extremely low power laser. But there are some really interesting systems. I have a bookmark tab somewhere I have to dig through where I have a bunch of stuff on the things I was reading about it. But it basically projects the image directly into your eye so that there is no backscatter. And there's some different technologies like that have a huge amount of potential, and I think will greatly improve night vision using digital sensors and thermal fusion, information, everything all in one thing, just integrating into your goggles. I think that is possible and would be super cool. Now, when will we have that? I don't know, but it would be super cool. And we had one question, which our fire department friend asked about the connectors you use. And let me try to bring that. Let's see. How does that work?
Real quickly. Yep. So I did actually, I know kind of what you're talking about with the projection system. It's called like retinal projection, right?
Yeah.
It's something you see in like sci-fi movies where it basically just shines the image into your eyeball, and that's what you're seeing and no one else can. I definitely 100% looked into that a long time ago, but I was like way too scared to try and do it because at the end of the day, I'm like experimenting on myself, and I was not about to shine a projected image directly into my eyeball like that. But like it is a possible thing for sure. And I had thought about for a long time with thermal fusion, like why don't we thermal fuse onto safety glasses or something like that? You have your projector that hits the safety glasses. And I saw there's a guy named Nick Chen on Instagram. His name is like Solus Cud or something like that. He actually had these devices which were made a long time ago, but they basically did exactly that. They were thermal see-through glasses essentially that your night vision went on the other side of them.
That's interesting. I know when I looked into it. We're fixed. Good. A big challenge with any system like that is projecting that image in a way that your eye can see is pretty difficult. Just projecting on the inside of glasses is possible to some degree, but you really have, if you look at, I can't remember any of the names, any of the companies working at it now, but there are some other solutions that allow you to get really close to your eye, like inside your glasses. And they basically have a bunch of mirrors and prisms inside of what appears to be a transparent piece of glass. And it projects the image in through the side, and it creates interference with the different mirrors inside that piece of glass to generate an image which your eye can see. So that's another system, but the problem is it has backscatter. The same as trying to project an image inside your goggles. It emits light out the front end. just because of it's not a complete reflector. You can actually you have to be able to see through it. So it has to be able to conduct light and reflect light. So that's why projecting directly into your retina is so interesting. But as you say, it's something that I don't want to experiment with. It's something to keep an eye on right now, but I think has lots of potential for this very specific application. So the question that Rampart Fire County Department had is he had a question about the Fisher connectors from the battery pack, and he had a few other questions there. I don't know if you want to just kind of talk about how your electrical system works real briefly, or if he has a more detailed technical question, he'd probably be better off just messaging you or asking you on Discord or something. You're muted. Just a second. Oh, unmuted on your end. Here we go.
It's actually extremely simple. So here is the industry standard Fisher connector, and basically if the white indicator dot is facing up, the left two are going to be your positive, or the right two are going to be your positive, and the left two are going to be your negative. And they just use 4 pins for redundancy, essentially. So if like you get corrosion in one, you're still working because you have another lead, essentially. But it's literally just like 2 to 3 volts in, and positive and negative down to your tubes, and that's the electrical circuit that it takes. It's very simple. It's not complex at all.
Interesting. Yeah. They're just the electrical. It does look like it does look like pretty straightforward. Oh, there goes my battery. Probably about time to wrap it up too. I've been going a little further than I meant to. Yeah. So any questions like that probably are best to be asked on your Discord to get more details on it. So we do have some interesting discussions about avalanche detectors for thermal. There's a lot of really cool technologies. We've kind of just barely covered stuff in today's stream, just trying to get a grasp of all the stuff that's possible. Something mentions of virtual lasers. Technically, actually, that is possible. Doing it accurately would be pretty hard. Let's see. Rampart will ask his questions on Discord. It's something to do with the electrical connector, I guess. Let's see. Image intensifiers. Cool. Hilltop, Form, and Forge had this question before. It's how do you handle collumination? We'll make this our last question unless we get another really good one, and then we'll wrap things up because I know we've gone way over our 1 hour mark.
Okay, so I'm assuming you're asking about the PNVG 69, and the short answer is this housing right here is not collimatable unless you use like shims. But basically what we're going to do is, it's annoying because Fusion 360 won't let me model the threads small enough, but this is going to be essentially like cut off and goes into the housing, and that's going to have off-centric or eccentric, how do I explain it? The optical axis is going to be eccentric to those threads. So when you turn this outer area, it will basically move the objective lens in a motion like this. And it's going to be really difficult to get this to collimate with this one, but also have this one collimated with this one. So I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to collimate the middle two, and then you're going to collimate your outer two to be close to the middle two. But it's going to take a lot of testing because there's the 2 points of collimation, and you're going to want to get the point that works the best for all 4 tubes. And that's basically the short answer of how it's going to be done. But there's a beta tester group, and we're a lot of really smart people in there with a lot more experience on panos than I do. Like I think 4 of the guys actually own panos, and so they are helping me on that as well.
Awesome. Okay, so and that's another whole subject which we didn't even get into today. Is aligning your 2 sides, but a lot of stuff to cover here. Forgive me, guys, for the long-winded, kind of jumbled around stream. I didn't have a super clear image of what I wanted to talk about, so we're kind of making up as we go along. A lot of cool stuff to cover here, and I want to thank everyone for watching, and I want to let Vaughn. Why don't you let everyone know where they can find you and kind of where they can follow your work, and where your website is and all of that.
Okay, so I have a YouTube channel. It's Vonscherf Arms. I also have a website, which is vonscherfarms.com. I have an Instagram page, and there's the Tactical Development Discord server. And we got about 3,000 members in there right now. And it's basically a server. It kind of turned into more of like just a community in general, but it was meant to be a server for people who are developing projects and basically trying to build cool 3D 2A things. So there's more than just my project in there. There's the Gal 15 that's from Knack. I don't know. I think he's coming out with a new revision soon. And there's a couple other things. There's some thermal stuff in there. There might be some printed firearms in there. I'm not 100% on that. But I don't know if there is or not. But yeah, there's more than just that. There's more than just the 69s in there. There's a lot of stuff in there. So there's a lot of reasons to join, even if night vision isn't for you, which I don't know why I wouldn't. But anyways, I plan on putting out a lot more YouTube content in the next like couple months. I got myself a nice camera set up, and I'm going to try and do some more filming and shooting and showing digital versus analog use cases. Maybe get some cool like shots under them and everything like that, and really start putting out more content. And I plan to expand more out of the night vision realm and into thermal, because I think thermal is really where the money's at, because it's really, to me anyways, it's the best force multiplier for, devices. And that's pretty much all I got, Tim.
Okay, cool. Cool. But yeah, that's about it, guys. I appreciate everyone for watching. You know where you can find Tim. Obviously, you know where you can find me. I won't mention that. So yeah, definitely check out some of Von's work. And night vision is awesome. We have more stuff to cover. I'll be doing more of these streams where I'm going to be talking about not directly firearms related subjects, but things that I think are really important. And yeah, so everybody, thank you so much for watching. Check out Von's stuff, and I will catch you guys again next time.